Wake up, Adam, they are getting close.
And a UN nuclear chief says large Ukraine atomic power plant held by Russia faces a dangerous situation. It says that out of UKR that the largest nuclear power plant in Europe faces a, quote, relatively dangerous situation after a dam burst in UKR, and that Ukraine's military Kiev launches a counteroffensive to retake ground occupied by Russia. The head of the United Nations nuclear watchdog said on Tuesday. Rafael Mariano Grossi, the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, spoke to journalists in Kiev right before leaving on a trip to Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. The plant has been in crossfire repeatedly since Russia launched its, of course, conflict on UKR in February of 2022 and seized the facility shortly after. Grossi said that he met with UKR President Vladimir Zelensky to discuss the perils facing the nuclear power plant, which grew more serious after the Kakhovka Dam burst last week. And it said that the dam further down the Dnieper River helped keep water in a reservoir that cools the plant's reactors. Ukraine has said that Russia blew up the dam, something denied by Moscow, though analysts say that the flood likely disrupted Kiev's counteroffensive plans as well. Grossi said that the level of the reservoir that feeds the plant is dropping quite steadily, but that it didn't represent an, quote, immediate danger. It is a serious situation because you are limited to the water you have there, Grossi said. If there is a break in the gates that contain this water or anything like this, you would really lose all of your cooling capacity. What's crazy is everyone didn't take a rocket scientist to see this coming. The first 10 minutes this happened, folks like myself and my peers were all saying this. If this affects the cooling, then this is something that down the road could be a problem. Now they're saying that it is causing a problem and that it's, again, not bad right now, but it could be. We'll talk about this and all of the other current events that are going on tonight. In fact, we have a lot. So we're going to try to get through this in a short amount of time. So stick around. This is going to be a good show. We'll be right back right after this. Nothing in the show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, a.k.a. Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. Today, we got a ton to go over, so if you've never been here before, you can always go over to our website, marfooglenews.com, and you can find a full bibliography for every single article, tweet, video, picture, document. I'll just look for today's thumbnail. Of course, NATO preparing for war, NATO-Russia Showdown, war on the horizon. Once you click on that, you will find that we have every single article, tweet, video, picture, document that we're going to share here today. That way you have a source for it. We're going to talk about Reddit, how 7,700 very important pages just went down. Why? Is it because of all of the stuff that's going on and now there's nobody to question it? Very, very curious. We're going to talk about the water rationing going on. We're going to talk about Microsoft, alarmed at doctors. We're also going to talk about NASA, the U.S. Air Force, the war, and everything else. So stick around. This is going to be a good one. Let's bring in my co/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on and how are you doing today?
Hello, Adam, and hello, Fugle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So I guess nobody is surprised that there are experts coming out and saying that there might be an issue with the Zaporizhia power plant. But I guess how bad could it get if something does happen, right? If their cooling system goes out the window, they've talked about this many times. What is that? A really big disaster? Is that what they say?
Well, yeah, that would be a huge disaster. I think the real question a lot of people are looking at is if this does happen, is it something that happens because it's created? In this case, maybe taking out that pool of water, and who would be the one responsible for it? We've seen reports coming out of Ukraine saying that it was part of Russia's plan to do this, that, and the other, like 3 or 4 different things. One of them being the plant. Of course, we've got the other side saying, no, we're not doing that. They're the ones doing it. They're shelling it. They're hitting it, et cetera, et cetera. So they always point the finger at one another. But if this goes down, it will be a massive meltdown. It's a huge plant. It's one of the largest in Europe.
So they've shown kind of the fallout that would happen if something really bad happened. As they pointed out in this article, obviously UKR says that they did it. Russia says that UKR did it. And what's crazy is they say, oh, well, Russia did this. It also to basically hurt maybe their counteroffensive or to screw them up. But this hurts Russia as well, especially if Russia is controlling that power plant. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And remember, you can always chat and say hi to me. If you are watching the replay, you can always leave a comment and I will read it later. All right. And then Reddit communities lock down in protest of API changes. Now, there's multiple ways to look at this right now. If you say go to the R conspiracy group, right? The actual page that talks about a lot of crazy stuff. You can't access it. In fact, it is locked down along with 7,700 other pages. It says that thousands of Reddit communities have gone dark in a 2-day protest over proposed API pricing changes, which could see third-party app developers priced out of the platform. Reddit, the popular news and discussion site, announced its proposed pricing changes around 2 months ago when it revealed some third-party apps would have to start paying for access to its application programming interface, or its API. The subsequent weeks saw bubbling tensions among the community moderators and users alike, many of whom pointed out an inherent threat to popular third-party apps focusing on accessibility and research. And in early June, countless subreddits announced that they would be banding together in a coordinated protest. So what is strange about this is the timing. Now, Dex, you understand APIs better than I do. Why are they complaining about this, and why are they protesting if that is what's happening?
Well, yeah, and it is happening. Ironically, I had some issues, and I was trying to find some stuff. And of course, everything when you're looking for answers, a lot of times their answers on, say, Google or even DuckDuck are pointing to Reddit forums, and you'll find people that are talking about the issue you're trying to resolve. That's like a tech issue or something else. I just ran into it tonight. I found every answer I wanted, but every time I clicked on it, I couldn't see it. Very frustrating. So, and this is a very large platform, but the interesting thing is the timing. Like, why is it happening right now, this week, Monday, Tuesday, and it may go on longer, but why are they doing it right now when we've got the indictment that just went down? We've got other things coming out about the current president. We've got other, topics that would typically be, hashed out in great detail there amongst many different people. And all of a sudden, all of these sites and these subreddits are frozen and not available, and that's being done by the actual owners of the subreddit themselves.
Yeah, and so if 7,700 of these went down, wouldn't all of the runners of each one of those subreddits have to do this, right? I mean, wouldn't that mean that each one of these people are actually doing it? It can't be the website doing all of that, right?
No, it's each one. Like, because there's plenty that are still available. I mean, there's a lot more than 7,400, but it's the big ones. It's a lot of the big ones that have a lot of pull, like r/conspiracy, which a lot of people go to. Yeah, you can't get there right now.
So
Now, for those that created other ones to compete with it, it might be doing them some good because they're going to get a lot of people looking and not finding what they're looking for and maybe joining other subreddits. But yeah, it's a big deal.
So wouldn't that make it harder to say that this is something nefarious then? Or would that kind of make it hard to say that all of these subreddits are, or are there multiple
Or
people?
someone- well,
are there very
somebody
few
organized
people
the
running multiple subreddits?
So no, somebody organized the date. Somebody said, "Hey, let's choose this week to shut off our subreddits." So why this week? This has been an ongoing issue over this API charging, and that's not, like that may be the real story for them, but why this week? That's what I ask.
So they literally shut it down. So they say it's been going for 2 days. So a day before the president gets charged and all of this stuff is going down, this is when, right? And all of the new stuff that has just come out about JB and his son. Seems weird to me. What do you guys think? Obviously, there's only so much we can speculate on this, right? It sounds very, very fishy, but most things do nowadays. Is it just normal? Is this something just a coincidence? Personally, coincidences are far and few between now. Ray the Way says, Adam, I know what you're going to say, but after today's Fire intro song, I'm going to need you to release that song on Apple Music or all streaming platforms. I don't do that, but well, thank you for the compliment, though. I appreciate that. I literally made that right before the show. Heath Spear, thank you. Thank you from Australia. Heath, you never write anything. You can always write something there, especially if you're sending a message all the way from Australia. Say, tell me what's going on in Australia or something. You can do that. All right. Thank you, Heath, and I appreciate your support. Thank you for supporting Independent. Boulder clobbered with hail, street flooding during Monday's storms. So there is some videos attached over on our website. It is copyrighted, so I'm not going to play it, but there's some really incredible videos coming out about with the crazy severe storms hitting Colorado. As severe storms hit the Front Range on Monday afternoon, Boulder got so much hail that it looked like snow, following by flooded of creeks and in some streets. The severe weather threat will continue for much of the Front Range and the eastern plains throughout Monday afternoon. Colorado Springs, Pueblo, and much of the southeastern Colorado was under a severe thunderstorm watch through 7 p.m. 9 News viewers shared photos and videos from the storms as they passed over Boulder, Colorado. Meteorologist Chris Bianchi said about 1 to 2 inches of hail fell on the city. As of about 2 p.m. Monday, storms were still hitting along the Interstate 25 corridor, but the heaviest rain should be mostly done. So there are some pretty crazy scenes of the actual hail. When hail gets big enough, it gets extremely dangerous. In fact, we have a family friend that they lost a family member to huge golf ball size, or not even golf ball. It was more like, softball size hail. And it ended up hitting them in the head and giving them a brain injury. So hail's nothing to play with, but especially when then it's so much hail, it ends up turning into something that melts and causes flash flooding. You don't see that as much as you do some of the other disasters, right? And then water rationing is introduced after temperatures hit 30 Celsius on the hottest June 13th ever. Dex, so they're now rationing water. What's going on here?
With the strange weather and even the article we're talking about before, it just seems like everything's getting off the chain here. And those pictures in that previous article are pretty amazing. When you look at it, you think it's snow. They're right there in the article. But if what we're talking about here in the UK is yet again another example of what they're predicting for everyone. Is this high heat for the summertime? And it's not here where I live yet, but obviously it's hit the UK. They're expecting a heat wave in Texas, which we talked about yesterday, possibly putting their power grid to the maximum capacity or reaching a new level that it's never hit before, although they broke that record 11 times last year. They're just going to keep growing. But yeah, so now they're rationing water in the UK. A lot of the places in the UK are under restrictions there for it. And of course, they're dealing with the heat now. just like a lot of other people are.
So you have extreme cold temperatures in some places, then you have this extreme heat wave going through others. This year, I'm not a meteorologist, but there's some good channels that I follow. I like Ryan Hall. I don't know if, I'm not an expert, so I don't know if the guy is really as good as people say he is, but I definitely say he has a really great way of communicating, weather and things like that. Great channel for that. As a caller said last week, there's a lot of great channels for different things, like Dutch Sense for earthquakes, or Ryan Hall for weather, or Monkeyworks for flight radar type stuff. There's a lot of great people in this niche and in others that it's great if we could all work with each other and push each other's ways. So make sure to go check out some of those channels and say we said to say hi. And then Paul McCartney says AI got John Lennon's voice on last Beatles record. It said Beatles singer Paul McCartney told the BBC that artificial intelligence was used to extricate and clean up the vocals of former bandmate John Lennon from an old recording, allowing them to feature in an upcoming track. It's a very interesting thing, it's something we're all sort of tackling at the moment and trying to deal with, McCartney told BBC's Today program when asked about AI. So think about this. John Lennon is, of course, dead, and they could have him or anybody else. If you could think about it, we could have Tupac, brand new features and brand new songs come out from Tupac. We could have brand new songs coming out from Elvis. Think about this. I mean, this is really quite nuts. Dex, could you imagine? I bet you in the next couple of years, we're going to see a lot of dead artists popping up. And I bet it will be as easy as going to the family or whoever owns the rights for that music, and they'll make brand new songs with dead artists. I mean, this is like they're being brought back to life.
Exactly. Now, in this particular case with Lennon, they were taking an old tape that they had. I think it was literally a cassette tape of a recording of him doing the soundtrack for the song that he'd started in 78. I think he died in 80. And he and McCartney they were trying to bring that song out. And the only way to do it was to get his voice off that tape. But obviously it wasn't done in a studio. So by using AI, they were able to not recreate his voice, but clean up his voice and bring it to a level that was, acceptable to be put on a regular recording. So in that case, it's not necessarily creating something from nothing, but it's using the technology to, enhance something that you might not have been able to really hear very clearly. And then this other example, as you're talking about, we're probably going to see artists, especially their families, look at this as a mechanism to create potentially revenue. I mean, if there's money involved, if you could release a Tupac album and make millions, the family, he's using that as an example, but the family could certainly, take the voice, clone it, and start creating new music with his voice.
You could literally have Tupac and Biggie, a Chat GPT wrote song about how they're getting along in heaven, come out on the radio. I mean, like this is where this is heading. I should know. You can't patent an idea, or I guess you can, but it's like, you better give me credit when that happens. Just watch. They're going to be kicking it in heaven, hanging out with each other, if they're even gone. But who knows? Reddit conspiracies shut down, so we can't go talk about it. And before we move on, just a quick reminder, make sure to go over and check out marfuglenews.com/EMP. This is an actual way to protect yourself, your cars, your vehicles, and pretty much anything you want to keep running after an EMP or a CME, a Carrington level event from the sun. These are extremely easy to do, as you can see on the screen. In the car version, literally takes wiring in 3 wires. All you have to do is connect the red to red, black to black, the black to black, and then green to ground, so green to the frame. Very, very easy to do, to hook this up to your vehicle, and it will protect you. So when we say this is easy to do, it's very, very simple, and then just then mount it inside of your car somewhere. So very, very easy to do. This is the same company that helps protect agencies like DHS, DOD. It's Keystone Military tested, and it will end up saving lives in the event of an EMP because people will be able to drive and get away, or drive to get home to bug in, or to get out to bug out. There is now the micro. This is the new micro. If you ever had the original and for some reason it didn't fit in whatever type vehicle, The micro is about a third of the size and all the same protection. This is something that is a very smart investment for any kind of prepper, especially on vehicles like ATVs or anything that you plan on going and getting out with. Otherwise, they actually do them for boats, solar generators, gas generators, really important one. And then, of course, motorcycles and RVs, whatever you can think to protect, they probably have one for, including the home version. You would want to have an electrician do that one because it's dangerous voltage. But once you do, it will protect everything within 250 linear feet that is plugged in your house. 250 linear feet is most houses. That is a really, really great thing to have. So go to marfugglenews.com/EMP to save $50 off per device, and you will end up helping our channel at the same time. It's 100% American made. It's a veteran-owned business. And of course, they have free shipping within the continental US. Thank you guys for supporting us. Again, we are on our own. So any of our affiliates we pick because we believe in them. We believe that they will save a life, make life easier, or again, make an SHTF situation either null and void or easier. So, Dex, do you want to explain the doctors using ChatGPT to tell patients bad news?
Oh, every day we're finding new uses. So, in the previous article, we talked about how AI was, enhancing an old recording and bringing something out that, in probably a realistically good use case for some technology like this. Now we're talking about doctors who maybe don't feel like they can empathize so well with their patients, and instead they're turning to ChatGPT to ask it to write for them, how to explain in either layman's terms or with a lot of empathy the problem, or maybe even the future demise of one of their patients, and having to explain that to them. So I don't know. It's an interesting question. Now, certainly asking an AI system, especially one like ChatGPT, for medical advice would not be advisable. And a lot of people have frowned upon, nurses and other people that have done that. And even doctors, I guess, have done that, using it as a research tool. But that, this is a different scenario. This is, maybe trying to improve the way you speak, and doing it. Maybe you just don't have that great of bedside manner, or that great of ability to talk, in a kind way towards a patient that may be receiving bad news. So maybe that's one way they're looking at using this, and a lot of people have started to do it. And it's a big question. Would you want your doctor to do that? Would you want them to, improve their mannerisms, or at least maybe speak to you? And the other thing is to be able to speak in a language that you understand, because I know a lot of doctors are used to their jargon, used to their technical terms, and they take for granted that we don't really understand what the heck sometimes they're saying. So using a tool like this can also help them.
I think that they just made news out of something that's really not news. You know what I mean? I don't care how they tell me, as long as they're telling me what's going on. But I get it. We're probably going to see a lot more stories just like it. Now, somebody said the Antarctica story. Marf, have you seen the Antarctica story? Kenny Cams, by the way, hey, nice to see you, man. Which one? There's a bunch right now. There's been a lot over the last 3 weeks, like the underwater landslides and things. But if there's something we're missing and it's not on our bibliography, let us know and we'll add it to today's show. Kenny Cams, if you can, drop it in the chat. I don't want you to have to super chat again to get us that. But if you can, tell us which story you're referencing. And if we don't have it, we'll get it on today's show. And then NASA, U.S. Air Force unveil new X-plane, the X-66A, to test wild wing design for fuel-efficient flight. They say that their latest experimental X-plane, and by the way, this is more Jacob Israel's kind of alleyway here, but he points out how many things have been labeled X and the kind of symbolism behind that. But they're calling it the X-plane, and it says the United States Air Force has designated the plane, designed in conjunction with Boeing through NASA's Sustainable Flight Demonstrator Project, as the X-66A, and of course with 66 in there as well. And it says the X-66 is also the first X-plane designed specifically to help the U.S. achieve the net zero goal for aviation greenhouse gas emissions set out by the White House's U.S. Aviation Climate Plan, which is, I think, a CAP, right? Released in 2021. NASA said in a press release that the X-66A could inform a new generation of sustainable single-aisle aircraft planes that currently operated in the backbone of passenger-based air travel. As a result of their heavy usage, single-aisle aircraft account for about half of aviation greenhouse gas emissions across the globe. This means a sustainable version of such a craft would have a major impact on greenhouse emissions. It says at NASA, our eyes are not just focused on the stars, but also fixated on the sky. The Sustainable Flight Demonstrator builds on NASA's world-leading efforts in aeronautics as well as climate. It says NASA Administrator Bill Nelson said it in the statement. Let's see here. Whistlebee sent docs to Senate of Energy Weapon. Dex, can we check that? It says whistleblower sent docs to the Senate of Energy Weapon. Well, makes sense that Reddit is down right now. Can't talk about it, or at least not the places that everybody does. Like, that is where all of this stuff would be talked about and fleshed out, because a lot of people go on Reddit anonymously and they feel more comfortable to talk about it, question it, all of that. But yeah, I wonder what's going on with that. No, I did not hear about that yet, and maybe I missed it. Dex, go ahead.
Yeah, I found Kenny Cams had tweeted it to us. There's a video of someone talking. I have not listened to it. It looks like Eric Heckler. I don't know his title. I have not listened to it, but I did put it on the website, so you guys can check it out.
Okay, so you guys on marfooglenews.com, you can find that exclusive content there as far as exclusive to our website. Go over and check it out, and I will have to watch it myself afterwards. If I miss something like that, I mean, there's so much going on right now. It's insane. So make sure to go check that out, and I will as well. I can't give an opinion on it because I don't know yet, but it makes sense. Look at all of this stuff that is going on or supposedly going on in Antarctica and the Arctic regions. There's all of these bases. Russia has not tripled, not quadrupled, not quintupled, but 12x'd their presence in the Arctic regions. So something is definitely going on up there, but we don't know exactly what. So we'll see. All right. And then what do you guys think of the X-plane? Here is a kind of an image of, why are they calling it the X-plane though? So it looks like it has like extra wings. Oh, this is the top down. Don't the wings look like an X from, if you're looking at it straight on? Like, aren't these two other ones separate from the other ones that go down or something? It kind of reminds me of a drone. I don't know why they only show you the one image or rendering of it, but I think these bottom ones, I think those are actually facing down, and then the normal wings look like normal wings, and then they have these two kind of, almost, if you know what the Inquisitor ship looks like, that it might be something like that. All right, and then let's see here.
I found another picture if you want it.
Oh, sure. Isn't it screener? Let's see here.
1 second, it will be.
Okay. So we'll show you. I that's my guess. I haven't seen any other pictures, so I'm just taking a wild guess here that it looks like an X when you're looking at it head on. But we will see here in a second. And then while we do that, let's see here. U.S. decides to rejoin UNESCO and pay back dues to counter Chinese influence. Dex, after you do that, if you want to go over this, I'm going to actually skip back to that. No, that's not a crack in the Chinese aircraft carrier. There's so much insaneness going on, and apparently some were worried about a crack. Despite rampant online speculation, there are up to 2 large cracks on the deck of China's 3rd aircraft carrier. A new analysis of satellite imagery insists that the ship is intact. Tweets with images of Fujian purportedly showed 1 or 2 dark splits that made takeoff and landings impossible until it was repaired. Some of these posts included jibs at China's shipbuilding, such as, quote, made in China, There are even articles now citing tweeted rumors, growing the audience that believes that there are fissures rendering the vessel unable to perform its mission. But a review to be posted this afternoon by the Center of Strategic and International Studies and the China Power Project debunks the crack claims, straight up calling them rampant misinformation. It says a review of the commercially available satellite images from May 15th showed that the Fujian has no visible cracks or any other markings that would present a problem for the Chinese military. There's also no evidence that sailors are involved in any repair work to fix the opening. It says, but the images circulating online do show long, dark streaks that certainly look like cracks from high above. So what are they? It says the streaks that overeager analysts mistook for cracks are instead liquid pooling and running in rivulets across the deck. Older imagery from September 8th, 2022 and April 23rd, analyzed by China Power, shows the liquid appears to originate on the port side of the vessel and run towards the starboard side. This is really crazy. It says this makes sense given the vessel is tied up to the pier on the starboard side, which will sometimes cause a slight tilt and with tidal swings. The fact that in past imagery the streaks appear in different places at different times adds further evidence that these are not cracks. What's crazy is most people wouldn't even know about this whole crack thing. But here's the thing. There is a narrative that China is made in China and that everything is crap, right? I am not with that one because I believe that you should never underestimate your enemy. And I know the truth. All of our companies, including all of our defense companies, were sending stuff to China to be manufactured. So if you think that and that the stuff in America is made all right and correct and everything, well, I would highly recommend that you look at where they were building stuff for years. And they got caught doing it. They were sending stuff out to make it in China. And the reason why is all of these corporations, including the very biggest ones that got the very biggest contracts from the military, were sending their stuff to China to be made for a better bottom dollar. All of the companies over the last 20, 30 years have said, oh, well, since 1981, when they opened up to capitalism, they said, okay, we're going to send our stuff to China for lower labor costs. And I mean, we're not talking about, just a little bit. It's like, do you pay somebody $25 an hour here, or do you pay somebody $1 there per hour, right? It not only adds up, it saves hundreds of millions of dollars for some of these big companies. So what they ended up having to do as well is sending the blueprints, the abilities to actually make and manufacture these highly advanced things. It's not like they were like, oh, well, this thing's so highly advanced, we're not going to have them make it. No. Computer companies and electronics companies and every kind wanted that cheap labor, not thinking or having any foresight into the fact that they were giving China the ability to make some of the most advanced things in the world. And it's not like anybody thinks that the Chinese people themselves are stupid. Do you think that they couldn't make quality stuff because they were just not smart enough to? I mean, come on. Did you go to a public high school, or did you go to any school with any kind of culture in it? Because if you did, you would realize that the Chinese, the Indian, and other cultures, they extreme emphasis on education. These are the ones, the percentages and the statistics. The Chinese are way up there in going into further college and going all the way through and getting degrees. There's statistics to back that up. They are not stupid. And that the thing is it's not saying, saying that we're any worse or not being patriotic by saying that China's full of smart, really, really smart and dangerous people. It's just telling the truth. The thing is with this is everybody is trying to minimize the Chinese threat. Meanwhile, people like myself are saying, no, people need to pay attention. And I've been saying this for 5 years. And now all of a sudden everybody's catching up. And you didn't need a crystal ball to see this coming. Dex, go ahead.
Just imagine think about the manufacturing capability of China versus ourselves. Let's say tomorrow we went to conflict and we needed to produce, equipment. Who's going to produce the equipment here? What factories are going to create those tanks or create those, munitions and stuff? Like, we have some, but we don't manufacture at a great level. And by the way, a lot of the stuff that we build comes from parts from them. So that creates another problem. But their ability to turn on manufacturing, even if quality may be reduced, far, far, far outpaces our ability right now.
and the sheer ability to make numbers and quantities. There's like this huge pushback when people hear that, oh, why are you bragging about China? It's not. You have to understand, the truth is they have turned their entire country into a manufacturing powerhouse. Meanwhile, we know that American companies, almost all of them, screwed over our people. All of the folks that used to have manufacturing jobs in the country, those companies said, screw you, Americans. We're going to send it outside the country. And they outsourced the work, and it absolutely screwed people here. If the middle class isn't on its way out, then I don't know what's happening right now, because they're trying to destroy it completely. And over the last few years, everything that has happened is showing us they don't care about us. They don't care about people at all. They care about the bottom dollar, the bottom line. They care about the of course, every single dollar. They care about dollars, one single dollar, more than they care about a human head. So that's just the truth. This is an image of the plane. Thank you, Dex. And I can see why, and exactly what I thought, but I didn't realize that it would be connected at the bottom. So this is animation, I believe, and I assume it's kind of a rendering of what the X plane would look like. So this would be some sort of passenger plane in the future, and apparently it has much lower emissions. And probably more places to put jets that come out the back too. All right. Let's see here. And NATO has switched to war footing with Russia. Vladimir Putin's full-scale invasion of Ukraine has spurred NATO members to plan in detail with what has been unthinkable since the end of the Cold War, a direct conflict with Russia. However, ahead of the bloc summit in Vilnius, Lithuania, starting on July 11th, when countering Russia will be at the top of the agenda, Sir Richard Shirreff, the former Deputy Supreme Allied Commander of Europe, said that NATO was not ready for a conflict with Moscow. Quote, it needs a real kick up the backside, he told Newsweek, as he took aim at dwindling military budgets across alliance members, although there are exceptions, such as Poland. It says there is a massive war going on in Eastern Europe. It's a land war, and it's an air war. And so you need to invest in air and land, and that hasn't been done, Shirreff said. It said last year at its Madrid summit. Jens Stoltenberg announced that NATO would ramp up its very high readiness forces up to 300,000. That simply hasn't happened. The former British general said that the UK Army was an example of such cuts across the bloc being run down to a ludicrous size, as he believed that the defense establishment had believed that China, not Russia, was the major long-term threat. Geography matters here, and Russia is the wolf nearest the sledge. It says the Sheriff, managing partner of consultancy Strategia Worldwide, he believed that there has been a, quote, failure of deterrence by the alliance, which has missed an opportunity to build up capability after Putin seized Crimea in 2014. Am I confident that NATO will really be able to generate conventional forces ready for a conventional war with Russia? No, I am not. Even if the Kremlin and Russian state media insist that the conflict is already a proxy one between Moscow and NATO, the alliance NATO has not taken pains to avoid the direct role in the fighting, instead providing Ukraine with equipment to take on Moscow's aggression. But one of NATO's top officials, Admiral Rob Bauer, said in May that the alliance had to prepare for the fact that the, quote, conflict can present itself at any time directly with Moscow. This is why NATO will examine thousands of pages of classified documents outlining regional plans and guidance on how members can upgrade their forces and logistics, the most detailed plans ever since the end of the Cold War. I don't think this is going to be another Cold War and this is all just going to go away. Do you guys think that this is all going to go away after all of the major permanent changes that have ever happened in just the last year? Do you guys think that this is really just going to go back to normal, go back to business where companies are just going to go back in and everything is going to return to normal? I personally don't. I feel like this is history repeating itself. If you look at history of World War II, when there was a massive war in Europe, sounds familiar, and the U.S. was sending gear, sending, of course, money, sending tanks, sending all sorts of gear, and then all of a sudden something big happened. Pearl Harbor happened, and we were in it like overnight. I have said we're waiting for a Pearl Harbor 2.0, and I think that that's what may happen, and I'm not wishing it, and I'm not hoping for it. But this is what I see happening right now. I also see they are actually moving around NATO presence in all of the NATO countries. They're doing a whole lot right now. We covered from back when Romania ended up digging trenches, when Poland added in their anti-tank measures, their dragon's teeth, on their borders. And then, of course, the 600 miles in Finland that they're doing the same thing. Then you have them permanently changing NATO rules so they can actually strategically place troops and them actually putting the defense measures up there before anything happens. They're also, it used to be, so say if they rolled into Finland and attacked Finland, then Finland and their military would sit there and basically fight them off, and then that would cause an Article 4, Article 5, and then NATO would come in and help. Now, they have it to where they're going to permanently place troops, NATO troops, and NATO gear on the borders, so if something happens, they're already there. So an Article 4 and an Article 5 would happen, and it could be instant. Or they could literally shoot back the second that they're shot at. I mean, what would they do? If they just started going in there with tanks and blowing it up, do you think they're going to wait for all of that, or are they going to set it up? That begs the question, like, how are they doing this? How are they going to be putting NATO in already? It seems like they would only do that if they really, really see something absolutely coming. Now, the other part is people can debate on what's really going on. It's probably all some secretive stuff, and you might be right. But a war is a really good way to change the world around and to rearrange a power situation. And it looks like China and Russia are trying to switch their places in things. At the same time, people in our country, a whole lot of people are probably taking a huge paycheck and a spot at the table to basically screw us over. Many people have said that today is like modern day Rome, that the U.S. is collapsing. Are they right? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Dex, what do you think about this?
Oh, come on. It's clear we're ramping up big time, and they're encouraging NATO members and everyone to ramp up. And so, but I don't know if, on one hand, it almost looks like we're not fully prepared. At least that may be a little bit how I take the narrative, that from this writer's point of view. I know a lot of people here say, oh, no, we're prepared. We can kick anybody's butt. Fine. Take that for what it's worth. Hey, before we get too far off that topic, though, of conflict and even talking about manufacturing in China, grab the article I just threw in screener for you, Adam. It's not the article itself that's important. There was some statistics I just found in there that I think would, enlighten us when we think about this whole notion of if we go to conflict in Europe, or if we had to defend ourselves on our own land from, say, China, and getting back to our ability to manufacture that the most important equipment that we would need. It's pretty staggering what we can't do right now. And some will say, and I'm not trying to belittle the people that work at this facility. So this article that you're pulling up, I highlighted in there, Adam. It should highlight the three sections in there that was important information. It's an article talking about the M1 Abrams that we're going over, but the first one talks about this plant, and it's the only plant that actually does the M1 Abrams in Ohio. Joint Systems Manufacturing Center Lima. It's owned by the government, but it's used by a contracting company. But they only produce 15 to 20 armored vehicles per month, and that does include tanks. So that's not 15 to 20 tanks. It's 15 to 20 of some number, including those M1 Abrams tanks. And it could probably boost it to 33. That's not a lot, and that's the only place. And how important is an M1 Abrams? Extremely important. Okay. The other thing I thought that was interesting from this is it can take 18 to 24 months for them to build these, and they don't necessarily build them from new. We have about 2,500 of these shells, and they actually repurpose the shell over and over again to make the new tank. And again, it's a 1.6 million square foot manufacturing facility. 800 people, and it is the only place that turns these particular tanks out. And so the point being, if we go hot in Europe, or if we go hot in with China, and even more so if we have to defend our own land, I think we would need a heck of a lot of ground equipment. But even if we do something elsewhere, even in Taiwan or even in Europe, all of the amount of tanks and equipment, this is just one example, the numbers would be staggering. And our ability to ramp up manufacturing is not what it used to be. This is not like back in the days of, World War II, where everybody got together and, everybody was building. I'm sure we'll try to do that, but I don't think we're anywhere near what we were back then.
Well, and then back then it was like during World War II, they could tell a car manufacturer, "Hey, you're not making cars anymore. You're making this." Well, how many of those are actually left now? How many factories that used to build here and possibly have the gear and the robots and everything else to build things? How many of those places even exist anymore? Now, there's a lot of stuff still made in America, and but most of it is smaller independent companies. It's a lot of smaller agencies that probably couldn't make stuff like this. Now, if you know some great examples, that's great. But do you honestly believe we have as many factories as we did that are capable of helping out in a war effort as we did in World War II, back when we had a lot of things made in America? All of these things, I mean, look at how many dead cities there are in the country. In the U.S., there are dead cities where there was manufacturing there of some sort. And once those manufacturers moved out of the country, the town died. Literally, the town it was like everybody used to work here. I know of at least a few just in my state where the towns used to do this or used to do that, where people all of a sudden, they had a whole town supported, everybody worked there. And then the factory left, and then like that, it turned into a low-income city where nobody could find jobs, and they're 50, 100 miles away from any kind of civilization. They ended up, and it just kills towns. A little bit in a different story, I know a friend used to do, his family did logging and things up by ocean shores and things. That city, they basically cut all of the logging out of the things. It's like once they cut that out, it was like that whole place where people had settled and made settled their base in life. And then all of a sudden the jobs that were there were just gone. This has happened time and time again. I mean, look at our entire country. There's, of course, in the city centers, it's easy to think like, oh, everything's going well. I can personally say even in our city center here, geez, go look at downtown. All of the malls are closing down. All of the big box chains are closing down because of online stuff. You've got the downtown area. Just now, I just saw a piece today. Some woman was in her Tesla and got taken out, a pregnant woman in the middle of the street, taken out, and all the local businesses are gone. They're just shut down. It's like, look at what is happening here. It's hard to deny that things are not going well. We can be positive about it. We can say, hey, we're going to adapt and get through this. And that's part of the process. This is why we're talking about it. Dex, go ahead.
I know a lot of people say, hey, we have a lot of equipment. I'm just looking at the stats. In World War II, we made 86,000 tanks. And that was only about 2/3 of what the Allied military needed. So 86,000. We made 2 million army trucks. That was to support a conflict in Europe and in Japan. So just keep that in mind when you think about, we've got, this article we just showed you said we have 2,500 shells for tanks and we just keep recycling them. 2,500, 86,000 is what we use. Now I know technology is different. You don't need as many now, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, just think about it. That's got to be pretty eye-opening if you've never looked at some of those statistics.
And we can make, if they really pump it out, if they can pump out, they can boost it to 33 a month. 33 a month. And if they add an extra shift, they can probably, churn out 50, 60? I don't know. Yeah, probably like 45, 50 tanks a month. During World War II, they made 86,000. I mean, it doesn't take a math genius to figure that out. I'm not trying to crap on the USA. But somebody needs to craps on the leaders that have done this to us. Somebody dropped the ball. In fact, many people dropped the ball. It's like a giant pachinko machine where all the leaders are like, I'm going to get it in that one. I did a good thing. You guys get it. Before we move on, make sure to go check out Energy if you want to back yourself with a solar generator. This is one of the best out there. In fact, they just made it better. They just added the Flex Tactical. The Flex Tactical is now the new Energy solar generator with the batteries that actually have built-in heaters for extreme colds. And of course, this is now has the 1,500-pound tactical latches on the side. It has lots of great features, water-resistant, dust-resistant. This was actually designed with the help of the Air Force Research Laboratory. So the military is actually directly involved in the design of the Flex Tactical. So make sure to go check this out. They are expandable. They're modular, so you can actually add a bunch of different mods to change the overall performance of it. The one on screen, actually, they have a rapid charger on it. That actually turns it not only into a UPS or an uninterrupted power supply, but it also allows it, if you want to charge it from the wall instead of solar panels, allows each, it's an extreme charge time. I think one battery, it charges in about an hour, right? So it actually turns out, it fills it up really, really fast. They also have the supercharger, which allows you to plug in 12 panels instead of 4. It basically allows you to plug in 8 more panels. So that is a really cool mod. And then, of course, they have all sorts of accessories. This is silent, so no one is going to hear you from 3 blocks away. Again, it is unlimited energy as long as you have some solar panels. Even if the grid goes down, you can put some panels out and get power. So it's a huge deal. Everybody knows why they need a generator. Don't have to really tell you on that. But why solar? Well, it's a really good thing because you don't have to, you have essentially an unlimited power supply as long as this thing stays alive. And the reason you want to go for energy is, as you can see, any kind of electronic or anything like that, the longer that they last and the better that they are built, the better off you are. So again, this is something that is basically made like a truck. Even the normal version of the Flex 1500, if you go for the tactical, this thing is made so if they drop this thing off the back of a truck, it would stay together. That's how the tactical is made. And now I know, since I actually finally got mine, you can tell the difference. It is cool. I still think most people would be good with just the Flex 1500. And van lifers, and of course, anybody who's in an RV probably wants to go for the X2, which now I believe are still have some sort of sale going. Make sure to go and use our link because you're not only going to get a discount, but you're going to help our channel at the same time. The X2, which is all built in one, it has actually the battery built in. That is the new lithium ion phosphate technology, which lasts longer, and it is a UPS right off the bat. So it's an uninterrupted power supply. Have the fridge plugged into this plugged into the wall. It doesn't affect the battery. It will actually grab the power from the wall. And then if the power goes out, it switches right over to the power that is stored inside. Not to mention all the other cool little things, even a built-in huge super bright light that could light a field. So really, really cool. Make sure to go check it out, marfooglenews.com/energy, and make sure to use the code Marfoogle. Thank you guys for supporting us. I appreciate it. All right, and then Dex, do you want to talk about Putin is scared of punishing Prigozhin? So much about Prigozhin every day.
Yeah, he is the definitely the media attention getter from Russia's side. So this is an interesting story. It's coming from an insider that used to work in the Kremlin, that used to be a speechwriter, and he's making comments on his opinion. So take it for what it's worth, but it kind of does make a little sense. So first off, we've seen all of the outspoken nature of Prigozhin, especially against the Kremlin, and calling things out, calling it like he sees it, if that's how you want to put it. He's been pretty brash about it. And think about this. Nobody really does that to Putin. And if they do, they don't usually last long. They, either end up in a bad job somewhere stuck off in nowhere, or they may not be here much longer. That's pretty typical for people that have gone against the leadership in the Kremlin. So this speechwriter who used to work there said, like, it's in his opinion that he can't afford to repress someone like Pergazin, because he has such a loyal following and he is so nationalistically hardline, as they call it, or patriotic, as they call it, towards Mother Russia. So if he was to go against him in that way, it would turn on him. And there's also been speculation about there being a potential coup from Pergazin. So the point being made is like that the reason you're not seeing as much or any disappearing act, so to speak, of Pergazin is he doesn't want that that group that follows him to actually turn inward upon Russia. So he's sort of, I guess, treating him with kid gloves, so to speak. A very interesting perspective. It's told from an insider. Take it for what it's worth. We don't know.
Well, Dex, do you think it's
all be a bunch of BS too?
Do you think it's kind of weird that we asked this question yesterday? After months of this, we asked the question. I'm not saying we influenced this, but you kind of wonder, because a lot of people like the show and watch the show and then go out and talk to other people. It's like all of a sudden they address this. Like, was it yesterday's story that a lot of people asked, like, why does he let this fly? Right? They've been doing this for a long time. If you guys watched yesterday's show, we specifically asked this question. Why would he let this guy do this and talk trash about him? And we said, there's just so much propaganda about it. Like, why would you cut a check to somebody who is trashing your country or trashing the way you're running things? They don't usually do this unless there's some sort of purpose. Now a story comes out 24 hours later saying, basically answering our question. Like, isn't that weird? We've had a lot of things like this. And it's probably not just because of us. Maybe yesterday the same question was asked by our peers, or maybe a bunch of our peers asked the same question. And then they see, oh, this is a relevant question, and then a writer writes about it. Or the writer, well, and I'm not saying they watch the show, but maybe they do. We don't know. We actually have a bunch of people watching. Maybe they thought, oh, that's an interesting idea to write a thing on. I just think it's interesting that our community really started asking questions yesterday, and everybody was in agreement. Like, how are they letting this happen? And then all of a sudden, a big piece by Business Insider comes out, which we know Business Insider covers all of the kind of crazy, ideas, kooky ideas. I don't know. It just seems kind of funny that they, when there's a big question on everybody's minds, some big mainstream article comes out answering why, right? Because if they don't answer it, then people keep wondering and keep asking questions. If they address it real fast, then it just goes away, right?
Well, and this one's actually reasonable. I mean, reasonably makes sense to me like that. Okay, I could see why he'd want to keep him keep him close and not alienate him.
Well, because they have a different culture. They're patriotic, right? I don't necessarily believe that. I would think that they would look at their president and this guy who owns the private military that sits around, their country writes about them saying that they sit around drinking and they do horrible things, that they would be more patriotic about their president than they would be about this group, right? I don't know, though. I'm not Russian. If you're Russian and you have family in Russia and you know all about this, then let me know what your thoughts are. And then Putin ponders a question. Should Russia try to take Kiev again? Why? They ponder a question. And this is Reuters too. So President Vladimir Putin said on Tuesday that any further mobilization would depend that Russia wanted to achieve in the conflict with Ukraine. Sorry about that, guys. Adding that he faced a question only he could answer. Should Russia try to take Kiev again? More than 15 months since Putin sent troops into Ukraine, February 2022, Russian and Ukrainian forces are still battling with artillery, tanks, and drones along a 1,000-kilometer or 600-mile front line, though through well away from the capital of Kiev. Putin last September announced that he was a partial mobilization of 300,000 reservists, triggering an exodus of at least as many Russian men who sought to dodge the draft by leaving for republics of the former Soviet Union. Asked about another mobilization at a meeting with 18 Russian war correspondents and bloggers in the Kremlin, Putin said that there is no such need today. Russia's paramount leader, though, was less definitive, saying it depended on what Moscow wanted to achieve, and pointing out that some public figures thought Russia needed to get 1 or 2 million extra men mobilized. Funny, because that woman, main government-funded lady on TV yesterday said, you know what would really make this good is if we had 2 or 3 million Chinese soldiers. I wonder if that's going to be their solution, right? If they end up going with that. It says it depends on what we want, Putin said. Well, Putin said that there was a defense ministry saw no need for another wave of call-ups. He also raised that he said that he was a rhetorical question that only he could answer about going for another attempt on Kiev. Well, if we believe that they are taking this place back, then they're probably going to. Maybe they can't yet. Maybe the NATO infrastructure is too strong right there. But one thing that myself and others think is that they have not used all of their craziest stuff yet. It seems to me, and it continues to seem, like they are waiting for the big one. They are making their partners. All of these countries are lining up to fight with NATO, not just Russia. We're talking about North Korea, Iran, Cuba. You have, of course, South Africa. You have even India drilling with Russia there, and China. You have the whole BRICS thing going on, and you also have the whole what is it? The SCO, the Shanghai Cooperative Organization, growing, adding more people, adding more enemies of our state. So, what do you guys think? Let me know. Dex, give me 1 second. Let's see here. Abide, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. And then thank you over on DLive Jammer. You don't have to donate. Thank you so much. I don't know what the hero board is though. Is that something that's going on DLive? Thank you. Says let's be number 1 on the hero board. Jammer 1, thank you for your support. But I rather you keep that. Thank you. Bug Nana, Poca Loco, Michelle K, Cybin, thank you. Phil Billy, thank you. I'll have to see what the hero board is. I'd rather, if there's something going on DLive, I'd rather you guys support Cab7 or one of our friends. All right. Thank you, Michelle K, and thank you, Poca Loco. Dex, go ahead.
Oh, Adam, I was just going to say that quote that he had, that he said, I think it's in the next paragraph. That actual quote is kind of, he's saying only I can answer it myself, like whether or not he's going to go or they're going to go into Kiev. So I just, the way he phrased it just seemed a little interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, he says, should we return there or not? To Kiev or not, right? That is the question. Why am I asking such a rhetorical question? It is clear there that is simply no answer to this. I can only answer it myself. What the heck does that mean? I don't. Does that make sense to you, Dex?
No, but obviously it's his decision to make, and he's making that very clear. But certainly throwing it out in the face of everybody that he's going to decide whether or not to go for Kiev again.
I don't know. It seems weird. Thank you, new members. Stephen McMahon. Looks like Stephen McMahon rejoined yesterday. Thank you. And then Shield Maiden. Thank you. Laura Gittins just got a badge. Thank you. Melissa Raby. Warrior for Christ. Thank you for joining. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for your support. Lone Wolf, Tartan Grammy, Dennis N., Kevin Cowan, Leslie Lindsay. Thank you. Oh, and then thank you. I believe there's a couple names on there that are also on our board. Thank you, guys. Thank you for Linda S. Appreciate that. And then thank you, Claire M., Franco LLC, Helen M., and Chris G. Thank you guys from that as well, from getting badges and being on this year's PayPal list. Thank you. Appreciate you. And thank you. And then we have Putin admits Russia lacks drones and other weapons in war against Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin admitted Tuesday that Russia is lacking in drones and other equipment in its war against UKR. Putin made the remarks during a meeting with war correspondents. The about everybody, right? I just love how they will push somebody up. They'll support somebody who's totally evil, and then they'll also, at the same time, they write stuff that will basically put stuff in people's heads. The desperate, the mad, the despotic leader told the state media things that were missing in Russia's special military operation. Says these are high precision ammunition, communications equipment, aircraft, drones, and so on. Putin says, quote, "We have them. Unfortunately, we lack them quantitatively." Putin said production for these weapons has more than doubled over the past year and by 10 times for the most demanded areas. So from what I have heard, that they took this slightly out of context, that it's how they're saying it. But it says, despite a rare admission from the Russian leader, Putin asserted that Ukrainian forces had suffered catastrophic losses in the new counteroffensive, and suggested he could order his troops to try to seize more land in Ukraine by protect bordering Russian territory. Putin also said that he was not contemplating a new troop mobilization, as many Russians have feared, but did not rule it out. He reiterated that Russia's claim to UKR was responsible for blowing up the Dnieper River Dam that caused vast flooding on both sides of the front line last week in the country's south. So, backing up again, they both claim that each other did it. Nobody is saying that it just happened on accident. They're both saying that they were responsible for the dam. But it somewhat doesn't make sense that UKR would do that either, because it hurt it was actually backwards from what I said earlier. If they destroyed the dam, it would actually hurt their own counteroffensive. So both sides have kind of a thing like, why would they do that? Yeah, it's pretty nuts, everything that's happening there. And then the U.S. is sending depleted uranium ammo to Ukraine capable of piercing Russian tank armor. This is another big red line that has been happening and is apparently going through. First, it was UK, I believe, right? The U.S. is sending depleted uranium shells to Ukraine that are capable of penetrating Russian tank armor, the Wall Street Journal reported. We actually saw videos months ago that was out, and it was actually part of a documentary or something, journalists. And what I believe people saw while they were training and showing how they were training the Ukrainian soldiers on the tanks, there was a video that showed a table, and people recognized that there were uranium, depleted uranium shells there. I think that was one of the first times they confirmed it, right? But for several months, the JB administration has been debating whether to provide the shells to UKR following the concerns over the environmental and health impacts. Now, there is evidence of footage and different documentation showing how this can affect communities when they do use these in a hot war. But an administration official said that there were now no major obstacles to providing the ammunition. Depleted uranium, a byproduct of the nuclear enrichment process, is used because it is extremely dense. When used in tank shells, the material is effective because its bulk can penetrate through enemy armor. An insider, Jake EpiPen, previous reported, uranium shells also heat up and may catch fire, potentially causing fuel or ammunition explosions. The weapons could hand UKR an advantage in tank battles as it launches its campaign to drive Russian forces back from territory they occupy in southern and eastern UKR. Now, wouldn't Russia be able to use these things as well? Dex, have they said that they're going to use them back? What they have said is if they use this, then they're going to basically go after whoever gives it to them, right?
Right. And there was all this speculation. You remember that big explosion in Ukraine where and some people were speculating there was radiation there. A lot of people had said that maybe that was one of the first shipments of these shells, and that of course Russia targeted them quickly. And that's why there was that massive explosion. But yeah, they could use their own if they have them. I'm sure they do have them. But they definitely put this one out there because they tried to use it and make it analogous to using an actual nuclear weapon.
So under that kind of the way that they have framed it, they have essentially said, you guys are doing this. This gives us the right for tactical nukes, or that's what they implied. There is a lot of stuff out there that shows that it, of course, can cause skin irritation, kidney failure, and increase the risks of cancer. It's really nasty stuff. So that is happening. Real quick, make sure to go over and check out marfooglenews.com/prep. You can get long-term survival food, 25-year shelf life at marfooglenews.com/prep. Very soon, I believe the sale will be ending, so make sure to go over. There's $200 off, which brings it under $600 for a 3-month supply of freeze-dried food that will last until 2052. Freeze-dried food prices are going up and up and up. They've tripled in the last 3 years, so you definitely don't want to wait on something, especially when it lasts 25 years. You won't have to think about it for a long time. marfooglenews.com/prep. Now, today, there is a lot going on. Many people have been glued to their televisions to really watch our former prez dealing with what they are doing. We have made several things history today. Dex, do you want to go over some of the things that have happened?
Wow. Yeah. So there's a lot going on. The rest of the story, it is over at marfooglenews.com. Click on the thumbnail for the show or open up that show notes link down below in the description. It'll take you right here. Today, our former president pled not guilty and was charged, was booked after being charged and arraigned. So that happened. And it was kind of a fiasco. Somewhat in Miami area, from his motorcade from Doral over to the courthouse. Even some people were dumb enough to jump in front of the motorcade and were quickly taken down by Secret Service and arrested for it. So if you want to see all that, that's there. We've got the coverage of it on the site. Also, some other interesting things happened at the White House in DC. With someone being topless there. I'll just leave it at that. You can check the rest of the story, but along that line, along the lines of the month that we're in and what's going on, there's some other news happening with Starbucks and even what's been going on in the beer sales part of the business. That's all covered there. Hey, a lot of people are saying with the inflation numbers that came out, because they weren't going up as much as they expected, that there's this thing called greedflation going on. So if you're not aware, that's where companies just take the opportunity to raise the prices because everybody's expecting the prices to go up, and they do it to pocket more profit for themselves. So a lot of folks are suggesting, and some reports are finding, that there's actually instances of this greedflation going on where they're not raising the price because they actually have to. They're doing it because it's kind of expected now. So interesting. Lots of a little bit of updates on other stuff in the world, like in Kenya and what's happening there. Hey, the Stephen Hawking prediction is actually got a new spin on it. Some, I guess, physicists have been adding to the theory. Basically, the theory that he had was that the black holes are sucking the energy from all the stars around them. And what they're actually saying now is, while that part of it, I guess, is that theory still holds, they think that inevitably what will happen is everything will vanish across the entire universe, so to speak, into black holes in general, that they will eventually suck everything in, which is an interesting perspective that they've added. So if you want to learn more about it, it's a lot more technical than that. It's very high level and might even be a little off. Hey, that's going on. Look, hit this. In China, there was a developer who was trying to get people to buy homes and promise them a gold bar if they bought a home. Guess what? He's not. They bought the homes, but he's not delivering. Surprise there, like you would expect to get a gold bar. But that's happening. Interesting statistic on GM, and potentially if they were to keep building the SUVs and trucks with gas, they'd actually make billions and billions of dollars through 2035, as opposed to this big push to the EV market. So the Mexican mayor in Tijuana has gone into hiding due to all of the conflict going on there. And we've got a lot of the updates going on in UKR. So a lot of the additional things that go, this happened there. They captured these cities. Russia's took out 10 people in Zelensky's hometown, et cetera, et cetera. All of that coverage is right there, and giving you more details of at least what they're pumping out towards us from both sides of the Ganda there. And then the last one, Samsung exec stole the plans for a chip making plant in China and then literally went across town and started to build it. I think it's humorous when you see something just completely asinine like that. Like he thought that was really going to work. But anyway, that is the rest of the story. It's all on our website. We put it there for you. There's a lot more. I didn't even cover it all. Go to marfooglenews.com, click on the thumbnail for the show, or open up that show notes link down below in the description.
And again, thank you, Chanel Beveliqua. I actually missed your super at the very beginning of the show. It looks like you were actually the first. So I apologize about that. But again, today's shoutro will reflect that. So thank you, Chanel Beveliqua. Today, you are the top supporter, and thank you so much. Thank you, everybody in chat. Thank you, Wages, for holding it down on the mod crew. Ilea, I don't know if maybe you are still here, but thank you so much. And all of the mods, make sure to drop an M in the chat for Jammer as well, and all of the folks that are holding it down there. They're keeping it peaceful in the chat. Let's get an M in the chat right now for the mods, and then make sure to go check them out on marfooglenews.com/friends. They all have great channels down there, or they have, of course, all sorts of great sites and connections. They're artists, they're authors. Chance Paladin has books on Amazon. If you haven't checked out his bunker code books or any of the others, make sure to go check that out as well. And then, of course, Lisa R. Hall, just tell her she's awesome. Of course, Rip Curl Readiness, RJ Harris, Ilea, Trinity, Red Pill, Blue Pill, Hi-Ho, Kermit the Frog here has a great channel, puts a lot of work into her videos. And then Wages World has a great channel, and he covers all of the solar events. Go check him out. Bones has a TikTok and a Twitter account to go follow. And CJ Blaze has a Brighteon. Gem has a great link tree. Artist, photographer, she does everything. So go check her out. And Jammer, amazing guy, very smart. Go check them all out. marfooglenews.com/friends. Dax, thank you so much for your service tonight.
Much love. Great job, brother.
All right, you guys have a great night. Thank you, Kenny Cams, and we will update on all of that stuff tomorrow. We'll talk about that. Jerry Shirts, thank you. Thank you. Nana of Montana, thank you. Mitchell Wintro, Darby's mom, John McGreeny, Ray the Way, Derek Wilson, Peggy D, Craig Elliott, Sofa High King, thank you. And Ghost of the Light, thank you. It's now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro. Be safe, be prepared, and Marv out. Feel it exploding. Wanna run just like OJ, but you just keep on going. Know that they feel. Exploding. Wanna run just like OJ, but you just keep on going. Know today feels like a low day. Whole world feel it exploding. Wanna run just like OJ, but you just keep on going. Shona Beverly Kwa I see ya. Shona Beverly Kwa I see ya. Chanel, Beverly-Qua, 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 Beverly-Qua. Chanel, Beverly-Qua, I see ya. Chanel, Beverly-Qua, Beverly-Qua. Chanel, Beverly-Qua, I see ya. Boom, boom, dum, 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 dum. I said, greater on the other wind, I say, I've been Rob Mills and the Marenthe. I got hunters that in the sea, oh, way with the Don Noble Wise and the Mr. Star. Hey, with the Simon Tony P. I told you, Womack and the Doodly D. I D on the back now, back on now, we go. Film Zealot, I say rooters on purpose. At this point, I say it just to bother people. I do it so Jammer has something to do. I got Dan Noble-Wise in the WIS Jen, and a purple dog Tony P. And with a Stacy Cook and a Mr. Jen. Everybody like have a big question. Hey with the Rachel Queen, hey with the Wolves. 55 when the rooters and the roofers are putting on the back with a Aunt Jenny. Everybody go back now with 10 penny. With the Aunt Jenny, Mr. Ted Petty, and the Rob Mills. Rachel Queen, everybody getting real deal. Terry Flores hit the thumb up. Let's send it over 1,000 and get it correct. Hey, with the mind and the big the moon knows. Got us on the thorn and the mystery low. Everybody gotta go on the day low. Anesthesia roaming off in the way low. Hey, with the CJ plays in the jam. Jammer on the one and the Mr. Bam Bam. Everybody go with the I captain. Everybody know it's a Dan over waving on back with a German puff passing the cow in the movement. Baby the car, baby going and swerving, and the mispronounced words right away. I said the big now, back around the walls now. I said the miss bro and on the front now. And everybody kinda going out, and now we go out to the store.